Alright, hey guys. So today I'm going to read the Abraham Lincoln section for history. And I'm just going to get started. Again, there's questions along the way and then questions at the end. So if you want to just listen and then answer the questions, or if you want to look at them real quick and then answer them while we're reading, that'll work. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Abraham Lincoln, February 12th, 1809. 9-year-old Dennis stepped into the one-room log cabin and walked over to the bed where his cousin Nancy lay. Beside her lay a new baby. Nancy smiled at Dennis. "We named him Abraham, after his grandfather that was shot by the Indians. Can I call him? Can I hold him, Nancy?" "If you're careful, Dennis." Dennis picked up his new cousin and smiled at little Abe. To his surprise, little Abe let out a scream. He kept screaming until his tiny face was red as a cherry. "Poor Dennis, what do you do with a screaming baby?" His Aunt Bessie was there. Gladly he handed little Abe over to her. "Here, Aunt, take him. He'll never come to much." Tom and Nancy Lincoln were poor but hard-working pioneers in the state of Kentucky. Tom and Nancy were proud of their new son. Little did they realize how important his birthday would be to a fast-growing nation. The United States of America. The years between. Years passed. Abe's family moved from Kentucky to Indiana, and Abe grew to be a tall, strong man. Again, Abe's family moved, this time to Illinois. Abe had many jobs during his life, and he was a young man. He was a storekeeper and a postmaster. Later, he taught himself law and became a lawyer. People knew he was fair and honest. More and more, the problems of our country grew. The states from the North and the states from the South were arguing over each other's rights to obey or disobey the laws of the United States government. One of the arguments was over a man's right to own slaves. The South became angry and talked about forming their own country. They did not want to be part of the United States any longer. The North said that no state could leave the United States. There was talk of a civil war. Abraham Lincoln was sad to hear the arguing. He knew the United States must remain one great nation or it would become weak. Abe talked to the people. Many people in the North thought he would be a good president. They chose him to run for president in the election of 1860. Would honest Abe make a good president? Many people from the North thought so, but the people from the South didn't trust him. They knew he did not like slavery. October 15th, 1860. A little girl in New York thought Mr. Lincoln would make a good president. She decided to write him a letter. Before you read her letter, you must remember that in those days, many children did not have the chance to go to school like you do. Although she made many mistakes, she wrote from her heart. Honest Abe Lincoln, dear sir, my father has just come home from the fair and brought home your picture and Mr. Hamlin's. I'm a little girl, only 11 years old, but I want you to be president of the United States, very much so. I hope you won't think me very bold to write such a great man as you. Have any little girls about as large as I am, so give them my love and tell them to write to me if you cannot answer this letter. I've got 4 brothers, and part of them will vote for you anyway, and if you will let your whiskers grow, I will try and get the rest of them to vote for you. You would look a great deal better, for your face is so thin. All the ladies like whiskers, and if they would tease their husbands to vote for you, but I will try and get everyone to vote for you. But I can't think that rail fence around your picture makes it look very pretty. I have got a little baby sister. She's 9 weeks old and is just as coming as can be. When you direct your letter to Grace Babel Westfield, Chattanooga County, New York. I must not write any more of this letter. Write off. Goodbye. Grace Bedbell. October 19th, 1860. Lincoln chuckled to himself as he read Grace's letter. Me, grow whiskers, he thought. Up to this time, Lincoln had never grown a beard. I must answer the little miss, he said to himself. He sat down at his desk and began to write. Dear little miss, your very agreeable letter of the 15th is received. I regret the necessity of saying I have no daughters. I have 3 sons, one 17, one 9, and one 717. They, with their mother, constitute my whole family. As to the whiskers, having never worn any, do you not think people will call it a piece of silly affection if I were to grow it now? Your very sincere well-wisher, Abe Lincoln. Or was it so silly? Soon afterwards, Lincoln began to grow a beard. Mr. Lincoln always had time to listen to people. It did not matter if that person was an adult or a child. He was interested in everyone. Perhaps it was no wonder then that the people from the North elected him to be president. February 11th, 1861. Lincoln had been elected to be the next president of the United States. Now he must leave his hometown of Springfield, Illinois. On the morning of February 11th, 1861, friends and neighbors gathered around Lincoln's train. Before it arrived in Washington, D.C., the train would stop in many cities. You must remember that there was no television or radio in those days. Many people who had voted for him had never seen him nor heard him speak before. This trip would be a good chance to see people for the first time. It was raining the morning he left Springfield, yet hundreds of friends and neighbors gathered under umbrellas around Lincoln's train. He spoke to them. I now leave, not knowing when or whether ever I may return, with a task before me greater than which, resting upon George Washington, without the assistance of that divine. Being whoever attended him, I cannot succeed. With that assistance I cannot fail. Trusting in him who can go with me and remain with you and be everywhere for good. Let us confidently hope that all will yet be well. He asked the people to pray for him, and then he bid them goodbye. At that time, he was still not president. He would not be president until he was sworn into office on Inauguration Day. Until then, he would be called the president-elect. The train chugged its way through Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, making many stops. Each time the train stopped, there was a crowd waiting to hear the next president. The train moved into New York and stopped at Westfield. As usual, President-elect Lincoln began to talk to the waiting crowds. To their surprise, he talked about one of their own townspeople. A few months ago, a little girl wrote me a very nice letter. She told me to let my whiskers grow. I let them grow partly because she asked me to. Is this little girl here? I would like to see her. Someone pointed her out. Mr. Lincoln then walked over to Grace, picked her up, and gave her a kiss. Again, the next train started up, traveling through New Jersey, again into Pennsylvania, and then to Maryland. At last, on February 23rd, 1861, Mr. Lincoln arrived in Washington. He and his family would stay at a hotel until Inauguration Day. March 4th, 1861. The day Mr. Lincoln was to become the President of the United States finally came. People gathered in front of the Capitol building, which was still being built. Here Mr. Lincoln told the people from the South, "We're not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies." Then he made a point which all presidents make when they become President of the United States. Not point. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will do the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. All right. And then it just has questions like this for you to answer. So go ahead and answer those, and thanks for watching.